Welcome to Male Fertility Streams on TopHealth. And today I have Thiv with me. Thiv, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be chatting.
Thiv I'm going to have you tell a little bit about you, what you do, so that people know. And then we jump into the topic.
Awesome. So I'm Thiv, serial entrepreneur. What I focus on right now is helping men become fathers through Hera. So at Hera, we provide a simple, easy way for guys to learn about their fertility with our at-home test, and then address it with any kind of treatment options through our program. And I'm super excited about this. And always, I love to talk about men's fertility because it's not talked a lot about. Even though 50% of the time, in terms of infertility, it's actually the guy. So that's what we're focusing on right now. And we're trying to make it so that every guy, when they've decided to want to become a father, they're using our test kit.
And I want to call it out. The only reason this stream exists on TopHealth is because of my interactions with Thiv. and I was very much, I learned about this and I was like, you know what, this needs more attention than it should. And that's why we launched it on our side, on especially the male fertility stream. So that credit goes to you.
No, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. For me, I love talking about this, but I never thought about creating something like this. And I think it's going to be awesome because then now we can get the word out to more and more people. And because there's so many parts to this that we could talk about. We could spend hours talking about just even what does sperm count mean.
Yeah. And speaking of that, we're going to jump on this topic and talk a little bit about it. A few things today. So let's talk about especially the sperm counts you mentioned. And, studies show that sperm counts have dropped globally by over 50% in the last few decades. Mm-hmm. What are the primary drivers behind this trend, and how should the industry respond to this crisis?
No, it's a great question. And it's something that I didn't really know about until I started digging in a little bit more. And I got really concerned understanding it because it's become such a big trend for the past 50 years. And there's more and more research pointing to this and done by some really good people where sperm counts have dropped now close to like 50 to 60% from what it was in the 1970s. And it's a scary trend. And now I think there's been a lot of discussion on why this is happening, and there's different theories behind it. And so I'm going to share a few that have more or less the right take and what a lot of the scientific community agrees on. But essentially, a lot of it they're saying it might be due to the lifestyle changes that we're having, especially the sedentary lifestyle and us not as active as we were maybe back then. But on top of that, then we have the diet changes, what we're eating, stress level, our testosterone level, which is a proxy and it plays a role in our sperm counts. So whatever impacts that as well is playing a role. And then there's a few other that we there are theories behind and growing evidence. The plastics having an impact on our sperm counts and showing that it's resulting in that. So I think those things have really resulted in a lot of those why. But like, to be honest, like I've read a lot about this. There isn't a definitive reason. And that's even scarier, right? It's like, why are all these guys not having the right count? And that's what really we try to focus on is like, let's get the information, understand where we're at so that if you don't want to be shocked that you have this issue, because even sometimes people who look like they shouldn't actually end up having this issue.
Yeah. And a little bit more on, like, for decades, the conversation around fertility was always about women. And it is like, it's always about egg freezing. It's always about IVF. But why do you think that male fertility tech is now gaining attention? And you are in the middle of it. So this is a really question from your perspective. But also, what does this shift mean for the industry overall?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think in the last 5 or so years, there's been this growing trend for need where fertility care is becoming a topic and an important discussion, and people are talking about their fertility journey. And there's become new solutions that have grown. So, like back in the day, assisted reproductive technologies, art was a very small. It serviced a very small group of people, but it was revolutionary. But now more and more people are requiring it. So it's a growing trend there. And just at that beginning stage, a lot of it was really about the women, and it makes sense, right? They're the ones who are going to carry to term and all that. But I think what's happened now is that as we started to learn more about fertility care and how it works and what technologies are out there, we've learned that actually we shouldn't be fully focusing on the women, because what's happened is that actually there's been a lot more of these issues with guys because of the sperm quality and sperm health going down. And because we're not focusing on the guy and testing them and treating them and all that, a lot of it has been resting on the women. And people just put it and assume it's a women's issue when there's struggles there. And so I think now with more data, more conversations and understanding, we're now at an opportunity to talk about, hey, there's actually a huge men's component we need to tackle. And that way it really helps everyone. And women can actually get the right and best care possible.
Yeah, it's like, how things have been up until, now when the technology is accessible, or diagnostic tools or tests are available more readily versus earlier years. There was always this thing, right? Like, because the baby comes out of the women, it's just like, it's easy to blame that, right? And
Yeah.
not think of what happens throughout before this, that while this is happening. So I think that's a big part of it, like being the tech and everything being accessible now, especially,
Yeah.
and that changes the game because now we can probably analyze it much better, much before. And
Yeah.
that's what Hera and you are doing it, right? So a little bit touch upon how Hera is tackling the first part in the journey. What's kind of what exactly you guys are doing there to make it sure that that's done.
Yeah. And Hera, what we want to focus on and what we think will unlock this so that it becomes more of not just a women's issue, but an everybody issue, is to first make it easier for guys to discover that they may have an issue. I think that fundamentally opens up everything. And in classic healthcare, it's a diagnostic testing. If you can make it easier and provide more information, you really unlock a whole business there. And so, and you really help the patient, because otherwise there's no other way unless they spend time trying that they know they may have an issue. And so here, what we've done is make it super easy for guys to get tested, because currently, I think the going rate is around 25% of guys do get tested when it should be much higher, right? Like, why is it only 25? One of the major reasons is because there's a stigma to go in, lack of education, but also the experience is just terrible. You're going into a place to provide a sample in a room, or in an uncomfortable room, or in a bathroom. Sometimes even a public bathroom, you have to provide the sample. And so, and for guys, this is just intimidating, or don't feel comfortable doing that. It isn't like getting a blood drawn and you walk out. And so we saw what had happened in other spaces where it was uncomfortable for people to go through that. And we determined, like, can we do a better way where if we remove that barrier right now and not have it a clinic, you have to go to a clinic to do it, and you could do it at home, but provide the same quality, or even better quality in terms of the results, and the care. I think people will really be embracing it. And so that's our hope here, is how do we raise that rate of testing up with a simpler, easier to use solution where you don't think about it twice.
Yeah, it's like I say, like, I have 2 kids, 2 and 4, and it's super difficult for me to go out of the house one day and I need to get my blood drawn.
Yeah.
but I was using these labs which provided someone to come to my house and
Right.
not pay actually not a lot. And they came in the house and they drew the blood in the house, and then I got the test results.
Uh-huh.
So I think that is what is like, the convenience
Yeah.
brings the access, right? Like, and people want to do it if you make it that thing possible for them to at home, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
And the technology is getting better and better. So we should be able to do it, and it should become the norm. We're really a testing company in that way. We're not, and really, it's the same quality as you doing it in the clinic. So that's what really is exciting,
yeah,
and it's going to really unlock this whole bit place where we constantly get this nowadays, and it really is what drives us, and especially in these early days, people going, "Hey, I never would have known if I had this issue without your test."
yeah. And you touched upon a little bit about the plastics and the stress level that's causing all this thing in, especially in men. So how can technology and education help mitigate these risks? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, technology. Yeah, I think number one is just learning more and being proactive. And I think people are doing that. That's number one is why are we doing this? Because most of the time people don't understand it and until it's too late. So educating yourself is so key, and why we're probably doing this is such a great way. People are going to watch and understand more and more the importance of male fertility. Um, Technology wise, I think there's so much going on there, and every day I'm learning something new. Even for us, we're doing more and more studies to understand how good is our test kit and how can we make it better. So, for instance, how do we make it so we can preserve it longer? How do we do it so that it's kept in better quality as we go along? How do we do it so we can get more information, not just the standard biomarkers for fertility? And so that's what really excites me here is that the technology is going to keep getting better and better. And if we can get both of these levers going, where the adoption starts to growing and acceptance happens, as well as the technology gets better and better, people are going to be more informed, and then they'll be able to know exactly what they need to do. It's and long is going to be the generation where people just accept that they can't have kids. There is more that we could do to understand why you may be having issues.
And is it like at certain part of journey only people use testing solutions like Hera, or is it like for everyone throughout, even though they might be coming at the tail end of things?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I right now it's been primarily that. But I'm seeing more and more people are becoming proactive. So it's not just as maybe it's been a significant amount of time and they're like, let me understand if there's an issue here. But instead they're actually going earlier. And we've had some people who, before marriage, even they do this. And so I think that's going to be the trend going forward, is that proactiveness, because they've heard how difficult it is. They know they have a better understanding that the sperm health is getting worse and worse, and you need to be proactive here. And so I think that's what we see. And I think that's an interesting trend, and something that's going to be key for us. Can we make it easier and become a no-brainer? And then to add on, there are other scenarios where you may want to do this. So others would be just to kind of list out that this test isn't just for fertility. So one is the checking if your vasectomy worked is a great way to find out, to see. But then the opposite is like if there is no count, that's great. Especially if you've done that test. So that's one basic one. Another is like if you're a sperm donor, to make sure you're maintaining that level that is if needed for the threshold that you need for a sperm donation. Just thinking of other use cases. Those are kind of the standard ones. And then especially if you've gone to some sort of treatment that has affected your fertility, you would want to constantly monitor it. But I think what I'm seeing now that's cutting edge is using it for other cases like prostate health, There's a lot that's research going into that. How can sperm health be for that? And just in general, I think there's a huge potential that people don't realize that sperm is a really good indicator of overall health. And there's more and more research coming around that about cardiovascular and all that. So could this become the test that you use for as a, like, similar to you going into getting a physical? Hey, we can actually find out your full health from just a sample like that. And I think there's huge potential there. And maybe that's how we're going to find out why is sperm counts going down? Why is sperm health going down? Because now we take this seriously as a biomarker.
There is a wave of personalized medicine, specific term, how it's been used, is where focus is preventative care. And there, the main thing is you first get your blood drawn and you monitor, or at least get to know your biomarkers. So, even when you get sick, or medicines that you take, or the medication that comes along in your lifetime, you know which one works, or which one suits you, which one doesn't suit you. And that gives you already that information. So is that the vision where Hera wants to be, like, for personalized fertility medicine in that regard?
Yeah, I think personalized, more and more people are talking about it, and gone are the days of like, hey, you're just going to get the standard of care that everyone else gets, and you're going to need more data for something like that. So that's what really excites me. How can we create a personalized treatment plan for someone? How can we make it so it's super clear what they need to do? And I think that's the missing piece in all of this. So not only just making it convenience for them to test, but like, what do you do with that information is key. What I found in the market right now is that when people go and get their testing done, they're just told, hey, here's your count. Oh, you're below the World Health Organization trend or threshold. That's it. Especially if you have zero showing on your results, you want to know, and you want a personalized treatment plan that says, what should I be doing, right? And I think a lot of these testing companies have been missing out on that, and that opportunity to really help them and make it. Now, what's going to be interesting is how do we do that with the guidance or the oversight of physicians, because you want to make sure that you're providing the right information and getting that. But I think it's done. It can be done. You're seeing it happen in different spaces all over the place. Especially, I'm seeing all these companies in the blood lab testing side where you're getting personalized recommendations based off of that and other information. And I think there's huge potential here. And that would be the dream, is like in 5 years from now, you do the test and you get a personalized treatment plan of what you need to do exactly to improve your fertility and improve your overall health.
And we often hear about, female biological clock. Is there something like this for male? I guess that's the first question. Yeah. And how can we shift the narrative to include more of male perspective in family planning, if that is the thing?
Yeah, it's interesting that the biological clock comment happens so often on the female side, and in social, like in pop culture, even in medicine, this is more of an emphasis on that. And so before I answer that question, I think what's important is that it's embedded in the system to think, oh, biological clock, women. Like I still remember when my someone I know really close was pregnant, and the doctor kept saying geriatric pregnancy because she was over 35. And I was like, this is such an archaic term. Like, what is, and I understand the implications there. And there is the evidence behind, there is a biological clock on the female fertility side, but there is as well, on the men's side, there is something there where men's fertility gets impacted as they get older, especially after the age of 35 and 40. As you go beyond that, your sperm health gets affected, and you see a lot of times a dramatic decline in sperm health. And so, but in pop culture, people don't really talk about that. It's kind of thought of, and probably because you see the Robert De Niro's and these famous people who are able to have kids at the age of 70 or 80. And so I think it's important, especially as people delay their delay building a family in this new society, like in this new world. That's how they're approaching it. That you have to remember that it's not only the women, but the guy also has can be impacted, and there are different ways that you can tackle that, and that's important too. So one, like similar to egg freezing, there is sperm freezing, where you could get sperm that is maybe you have a higher quality because you're a different age, health status, all of that. And I know more and more people, we've helped people in that process too. So that could be an option, right? So just like know that there are more and more solutions and options available for people as they get older.
But there is no, if I just I'm just double clicking on that, but there is no, not as much of a thing on the male biological clock side. There's no medical evidence on that side.
Like there's no, like if you compare it to the women where their eggs are depleting to a point where you won't, and then you go through menopause. There's nothing like that on the guy's side where your sperm will be completely depleted. What I think happens though is, and then this is important, is like your aging reduces that sperm quality, so makes it much more difficult to conceive. And then on top of that, you get like other issues that can happen. So DNA fragmentation will happen, hormonal changes where your testosterone is going down, so it's going to help affect your sperm production, overall reproductive health. And then just like not only delays, but then higher risk of pregnancies could happen. So there's a lot of things that just puts obstacles in front of you. But yeah, it's not like in the women's case where it's more of a steep decline, and maybe possible none.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about the sperm freezing is being promoted as the proactive measure in many. And do you see this becoming a routine practice? And is there infrastructure that we need to put in place before we do a lot more than what we are doing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it's becoming more and more of a trend. And I think more and more guys are understanding it. And similar to like egg freezing, where now more women are embracing it and doing more of it. But I think it really, for us, we like to explain why it could be valuable for them. A perfect scenario is really more so if there is a decline occurring in their semen like as we're doing semen analysis. As a preventative step, we would recommend you to do some freezing just to be cautious there. And I think that's a really good scenario. So again, I don't want to just say, hey, go freeze your sperm and that's it. I think like more information is power here. So do a test, understand where you're at, and then do another one after, see a trend. And that really helps you understand where is your sperm health at, where is it going, and should you be doing options like freezing, and be proactive. And look, sperm freezing technology is getting better too. You can now do it at home as well, so you don't have to go in. And the quality of its freezing, there's places where it's just pretty straightforward nowadays. And the preservation is great. So I think it's not so much that, it's just, I don't think as well, and this is something that's important in healthcare, to make sure you empower the patient to explain why this is and what their options are, and not just say you have, like, I don't want a wave of people that just do it because they're scared. I think they need to be empowered. And that's why analysis, like testing, is important. Just doing a test at first is great because then you get the data, like, and start from there.
Yeah. And based on what you do, it does seems like a natural next step for you, maybe to even go, I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. Is there something that is this thought runs through your head multiple times that you should also probably expand into freezing side of things, or are you looking for partner, or do you partner already?
Yeah, so we already have partners that we share with the patient of like, here are your options. It could be either an at-home one, or it could be you can go to a nearby center to do it. So we give them options because I think that's important here. I think for now, what I think really motivates us here at Hera is how can we get testing going and make it easier and get it to a point where it's a no-brainer? And how do we make it so that it's the best quality and get testing to get us more data? Because look, the reality is right now is that this whole like sperm analysis concept was from like 1600s. And we're very much doing the similar approach at the end of the day of how we're analyzing it. And it's gotten us this far. I think there's so much potential there. And I think that's for us what really excites us. Like what else can we uncover in terms of the testing, in terms of sperm health that can help people? So that's really where we're focused on. So yeah, maybe freezing is going to become the part that we bring in. We're not going to close that out, but I think for us right now, I'm super passionate about how can we make testing easier and how can we get more out of testing to make men healthier.
Would you be able to shed some light on just like overall looking at US's population? Are you seeing certain regions where there is still uptake of more male testing? Are there any early signs that you have noticed? Maybe not through your company itself, but industry as a whole. Have you noticed anything like that? I would love to.
Yeah. And just to hone in on the question, is it you're asking of trends in sperm testing and male fertility?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah. So I think testing overall, and there's some really good studies out there, and some of our competitors actually have shared some data about what they're seeing right now as well. I think overall, sperm testing has started to increase more and more, and in certain regions over others, and I think that's due to a whole set of different factors. But I would say sperm testing has increased in comparison to fertility care. So in the areas where there is fertility care being provided, like IVF, you'll see an increase in sperm testing as well. And that makes sense, overall trend. What I've seen more and more is that there are these pockets, these areas, especially in rural communities, where you don't have access to this kind of testing. Because look, it's not going to be in your traditional lab corp, maybe, but a lot of times it's not. And it, because it requires a different technology, it requires a different lab tech and all that, and approach, someone trained. So what I'm seeing is that, in the cities where you see a bunch of IVF clinics across the street from one another, you may see an increase in trend of sperm testing happening. But there's a lot of places in the U.S. where there's gaps, where there's not an IVF clinic, there's not a semen analysis nearby, or it's usually 2 hours away. There is where there's a high need and a big access need for something like this. So that's why we focus a lot on those areas, those pockets. So we're in Oklahoma, we're in like Alabama, and like a lot of these places where you won't find as many fertility centers and semen analysis testing available. So that's where we're focused on more so than anything else.
Interesting. So that's an interesting strategy to go after. So what you're saying is not necessarily looking at where the demand is so high, but where there is natural access problem, let's fill those gaps, even though the demand might not be like New York City, for example. Okay, got it.
And so even on the demand, look, overall in the U.S., everybody's having fertility issues. It's just some places maybe a little higher than others. Like New York is definitely where there's more demand than anything. But I think for us, when we talk to patients and everything, even though there's a lot of demand in different pockets, as a business and especially as a healthcare company, we need to focus on where there's the biggest need. And there's just these such like big pockets of no access for this testing. And we need to bring it there. And yeah, there may be different challenges doing that, but that way we know and we can feel confident that we're actually moving the needle and bringing something that could impact a lot of people in terms of their healthcare. And then eventually try to, own the whole market. But that's where we're going to start.
Yeah. There is obviously, I mean, I've lived in New York City, and when we had both girls were born there. So,
Oh, wow.
So I saw everything was more focused on luxury services in fertility.
Yeah.
And that creates a little bit barrier, because now how can the industry make these innovations accessible, right? And something that you touched, if you go to areas like Oklahoma or other, even in rural areas, you will have underserved communities. And so how can we make these innovations more accessible to these populations? What's your take on that?
My hot take on that is, look, we're not doing enough on that. And the reason being is because it's so hard. I think to build a business on its own and bring about a new modality or new technology is hard in its own. And then to do that in a place where you can help those who really need it, and to have money and make it a profitable business is very, very tough. So a perfect example for us is like we recently partnered with a urology group out in just outside of Birmingham, an hour away, where the community is totally different. Most of them are in they have insurance, but they don't have a lot of money for out-of-pocket expenses. So they won't be willing to spend that $250 or whatever it is for testing, and they aren't looking to pay a lot with cash, and their incomes they're modest, but not we're in the higher bracket to spend. And so, but they need the care, right? It's like, so how do you work around that? And how do you make sure you build something that is affordable and accessible? And that's core to us. Like, we aren't trying to be flashy here. We're trying to be at the highest quality, but we aren't trying to make this the flashiest product here. And so the key though is providing something of quality that's affordable and accessible. And so with ours, that that was core to building this, and even our newest version of our product, it's part of that, where patients are able to afford it. We're working on getting it covered by insurance so that they aren't having to spend an arm and a leg for testing or treating. And that's the exciting part, because then you could capture the full market, and it isn't for just the have, and it's for everyone.
Yeah, this has been great. Before we conclude today's conversation, the last part that you touch about conversations with insurance companies. And I hate to say this, but in America, we all work for insurance in healthcare. So the question is, how good, or what's the science that you have gotten the signal from the insurance companies to work with you on these? Again, we've heard about things like IVF to be covered under insurance for long, but I feel like that's a big leap for insurance to say like, yeah, we'll cover for everyone. But on the other end, I feel like diagnostic testing is not at the scale of what you would spend on IVF. So that looks to me more natural step. So tell me about how your conversations are going in general.
Yeah, no, you've hit. It's a really good point. And someone who was originally from Canada and then coming here, and I've had to feel like I need to take a PhD in how insurance works and how to negotiate and talk to them. It's a difficult space, because it really is, especially in the insurance side, it's like it's the employer or the patient's money, and they're just the steward of it. But it like there's just so many hoops you got to go through to unlock that, and so that's been a big focus for us. And we're getting closer to that. I think we'll get, clearer signs soon, probably the next in the new year, and be able to start piloting that and start scaling it. And I'm excited about it, but it's just navigating all that. I've had to lean on a lot of smart people to help me and the team understand what is the right approach, right? What is the way that we want to do it so that we do it the right way and it's truly covered and it's not like half baked. So I think that answer, I hope it makes sense that essentially like you can get listed on there. But is it going to be doing it in the right way where your patients are not, they're still getting covered for the full care. And that's key for me. So I think we're getting closer to that, and we'll probably start a pilot first and then scale from there.
Well, I hope that unlocks sooner than later, because once that happens, then you are mainstream. Let's say that.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to put those logos there and say, "Hey, we're in network," or just give us your insurance, and we'll check, and you won't have to pay your credit card. And
Yeah.
that's going to be what's driving us, because truly we want to make it super easy for people where it's a no brainer. And, there shouldn't be any obstacles in front of them. And so this will be a key step, but super excited about that, and super excited to just really unlock what's going on with this crisis and get more data to uncover it.
Look, we've gone through similar cycles over the last decade for mental health. Same way, it was not covered, nothing. And then now everything is covered pretty much on that side. Now, next up was diagnostic testings on the blood drawn side, which got covered. And now I think the next is like more treatments like fertility and all those things. So I'm positive, and I'm hoping that happens sooner. So that's the key. But yeah, this is where we conclude today's chat. Thank you for sharing your insights, and we will be back with another screens in this segment later again. Thanks for your time, Thiv.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.